Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about FIFA. I'm going to talk about a country that said no to FIFA. And normally FIFA is not used to this. FIFA expects countries to line up and so that FIFA can choose which one of them is going to give it a stack of cash whilst spending a fortune that it may not necessarily have. But in Colombia, in 1980s, they had the guts to say no to FIFA. And this is the story. And I want to tell a little bit of a personal story as well before this. 1982. I was listening to the Voice of America, and a question came in, because you could ring in and write something up in the United States. And the question was, why didn't the United States compete in the 1982 World Cup? In this case, we're talking about the qualifying rounds. Why wasn't even the qualifying rounds? And the host of the program, a very honest person, said, yeah, because we didn't have a very good team. But he then went on to suggest a way that the United States might qualify for the event, and that was if it became the host country, because Colombia clearly, which was to be the host country of the 1986 World Cup, was going to have difficulties putting it on, and therefore the United States was going to put in a bid, and that way the US would qualify automatically for the World Cup. I need to point out that the United States had actually qualified for the World Cup. It played in the previous World Cups, and in one World Cup it didn't do badly at all. That's coming off the subject. The 1986 FIFA World Cup, scheduled to take place from the 31st of May to the 29th of June 1986, was to be held in Colombia. But there was this move whereby Colombia pulled out. So let's now go back to 1970. There was the national football tournament in Ibagué in Colombia, and Alfonso Senior Quevedo, who was then the 59-year-old president of the Colombian Football Association, and he secured the backing of the government of Carlos Lleras Restrepo to launch a bid for the World Cup. 3 years later, in 1973, the Colombian Football Federation formally submitted its candidacy as being the host nation to FIFA, and that year FIFA inspectors came round, visited the country, and Senor's personal relationship with FIFA president, the British Stanley Rous, played a significant role in strengthening Colombia's bid. I saw an article today, actually, so I was trying to get one or two facts right on this, that in a newspaper in Colombia, that Alfonso Senior Quevedo was called the father of Colombian football. So, on the 9th of June 1974, FIFA officially awarded Colombia the right to host the 1986 World Cup. And at the time, the tournament featured only 16 teams. But this would change, and a decision that would have major consequences. So this year, for the first time ever, say this year because I don't know what I mean this year I'm doing this, but I mean when you're watching it might be years in the future, but in 2026 there are 48 teams. So it went from 16 as it was then to 24 to 32 to 48. I wonder where it's going to go next. But anyway, there's a good reason for having as many games in as possible, and the reason for this is to do with sponsorship, visibility. Ticket sales aren't really all that important, but it's really the branding, the visibility, television rights, and things of this nature which are important. At the time, I can recall from watching, for example, the 1982 World Cup, there was a lot of space in the stadiums, which was empty. And so that was just to show that ticket price weren't all that important. But I mean, the TV rights went all over the world. So, as far as Colombia was concerned, it won the right to have the 86 competition. The president, Misael Pastrana Borrero, he celebrated the achievement, praising the effort behind securing the tournament and describing it as a moment of national ambition and unity. But despite this announcement, very little progress was made. So his government ended in 1974 and responsibility passed to Alfonso López Michelsen. Now, although he'd promised in his electoral campaign to deliver the World Cup, no significant infrastructure projects were completed whatsoever. Now, I need to make this very clear. As far as FIFA's concerned, they do want some decent stadiums, but they want the infrastructure there as well, so that the place is going to look nice when the fans turn up. So it's the infrastructure which costs money. I mean, the stadiums don't really cost all that much. Sorry, they cost tens of millions, but it's not much compared to the huge amount of the infrastructure projects. Of course, the infrastructure stays there after, whereas the stadiums don't necessarily get used, such as the Manaus or the one in is it Rio de Janeiro? I can't remember, somewhere in Brazil, which is now a bus station or something. Anyway, that apart. So let's get back to Colombia. Internal political divisions, national unrest, and in 1977 there was a strike, and so this really did sort of delay any development of the preparation for the games. And the successor, Juan César Torbay Ayala, I'll say his name again, Julio César, that's a good name, Torbay Ayala, also failed to advance the preparations. Although he expressed moral support, there was no real progress. And there was a private initiative known as Corporación Colombia 86, which was created to finance the tournament without state involvement, backed by major business groups. Now, in my opinion, as much as I believe in private business, that should be private companies doing these things, I really cannot see how you can expect the infrastructure, even with the modern methodology that we have today, of being able to deliver on this project. The general contractor is always going to be a state-owned authority, as far as I can see. Anyway, Colombia in '86 they thought differently. The project stalled. Limited progress was made. So they did some building work on the Metropolitano in Barranquilla and the Pascual Guerrero Stadium in Cali, but key financial backing, including from many companies like Bavaria, was withdrawn. So if the cash isn't coming forward, what they're going to do? And there were, of course, tensions between Colombia and FIFA, which I suppose is to be understood in the circumstances. FIFA increasingly doubted Colombia's ability to deliver, while Colombian officials grew frustrated with FIFA's demands. Now, during the 1982 World Cup, which was held in Spain, there was still optimism there. And the final, there was I can't quite remember what it said now, but something like Hasta la Vista in Colombia 86 or something like that. I can't quite remember what it was. And there was promotional material which was handed out in Spain, which suggested the confidence that the tournament would actually go ahead. But behind the scenes, the situation was just getting worse. And there was a major turning point when FIFA decided that there wasn't going to be 16 teams but 24. Now in Spain there had been 24, so I think it's highly unlikely that they'd have gone back to having 16. Now what does this mean? It means that there's more games. More games means more cash and more television rights and all the rest of it. And also it's the way it's done. So you've got, what they had was, there was groups, 4 groups, and then there'd be 2 teams going forward from each group. So now you've got 12 teams. Now you've got groups, 4 groups of 3, and then the winners go forward to the winner of each group. Then goes forward to the final. So they didn't have, and this system has been used in other World Cups as well. And now the point of doing it like this in '86 to a knockout stage, but it's just to get, the more leagues you get in there, the more chances you've got of playing. And this, above all, was particularly important when the World Cup actually started, because, I mean, then in the 1930s, it was a long way to travel, a lot of intercontinental travel involved. So it was like South America and Europe. So if people to go from one place to the other, they're not going to go there for just one game. So they want to have 3 games while they're there to sort of try and recuperate their bus fare to actually get there. Anyway, so in 1982, there was an election in Colombia. Both of the leading candidates, Lopez Michelsen and Belisario Betancourt, said that they would go ahead with the World Cup if they win. Betancourt won, and he said that, yes, the government's only too happy to provide moral support, but funding had to come from the private sector. And so what did FIFA say to this? Well, it sort of made demands. And these demands had to be met by the 10th of November 1982. So what did they want? 12 stadiums with a 40,000 seat capacity for the first phase. They want 4 stadiums with at least 60,000 seats for later rounds. They want 2 stadiums with at least 80,000 seats for the most 2 important games, which is it's the opening and the final. Even if the opening and the final actually took place in the same place, but they still wanted 2 stadiums with 80,000. They want a communications tower in Bogota, and this is now the costly bits. They want a nationwide rail network connecting host cities and airports capable of handling international jet aircraft in the host cities. And they wanted the modern road network for getting the fans around, and that is going to cost that would cost anywhere an utter fortune. They also wanted a fleet of flash cars for FIFA officials. Well, that stands to reason, knowing the way they are. They wanted legal guarantees allowing the free movement of international currency. This was to get around currency controls. And they wanted fixed hotel pricing and local currency for FIFA delegates. Why did they want that? It's to make sure that they paid lower prices for their hotel rooms. So anyway, some FIFA officials, in all fairness, were openly critical. Hermann Neuberger reportedly questioned whether a country with widespread poverty could hold such an event. And so anyway, the event was due to be held in Bogota, Cali, Barranquilla, Medellin, and Bucaramanga. And all these stadiums required major upgrades, and Barranquilla's Metropolitano hadn't even been built, so it was still under construction at the time. So anyway, this was utterly clear, of course, that this project wasn't viable. Now, I listened to the Voice of America program I started off telling you about in December. It might even been January of 83, actually, when I think about it. I don't know, I wasn't taking notes at the time, but maybe it was recorded earlier, because it was clear that Colombia weren't going to be able to do it. And many Colombian officials, including Ivan Duque Escobar, concluded that FIFA's requirements were excessive, impossible to meet, and they just had to consider the country's economic and social priorities first. And as a result, on the 25th of October 1982, President Belisario Betancourt made the decision public. Colombia would not host the World Cup. In his address, Betancourt made the reasoning absolutely clear. He argued that national resources should not be diverted to meet what he described as FIFA's extravagant demands, stating that the World Cup should serve Colombia, not the other way round. Very good words, particularly when we think about what's happened in World Cups afterwards, and in this case I'm thinking above all of Brazil in 2014. Anyway, it's not going on there yet. The withdrawal of Colombia was officially confirmed by FIFA on the 5th of November 1982. So now that Colombia's out, a new country has to step in its place. Could it be the United States? Well, yes, it could be. It's perfectly possible. There's 3 other countries in the running: Canada, Brazil, and Mexico. But Brazil withdrew before the final vote. Now, Brazil had, of course, hosted the 19 1950 World Cup. Canada had never hosted a World Cup before, but it didn't really have the infrastructure. And the United States might have got it, but it chose to focus on a future bid. That just left one country, which was Mexico. Now, Mexico had just hosted, I mean, not many, only 12 years earlier, so it was 16 years between the two tournaments. It had all the infrastructure in place and it was ready to go, so it didn't require much work. And on the 20th of May 1983, following a FIFA Executive Committee meeting in Stockholm, Mexico was unanimously selected as host. And guess what? It didn't even have to pay a bribe to get it. Having already staged the earlier one, then it was no problem for Mexico to win. Now, when I was a child, I remember that there was this idea that you couldn't hold a World Cup more than once. Now, I don't know if this was just something I picked up from the comics, or it was football comics, that is, Scorcher and Score, which I used to get, and or alternatively, it was something that FIFA said, so I never actually learnt that one. I can recall a conversation with my neighbour as a child, and I said I'd like to go to the World Cup. Of course, there had been one in England in 1966, so that was out. And then I remember saying to her, she said to me, "What about France?" Then that, France is nearby. I said, "No," I said, "there was one in France in 1938. So where next?" So we didn't know where the one could be. And I remember when I heard about Mexico, I thought, no, Mexico can't hold it. It's already had a World Cup there. But then again, in these circumstances, what else could it do? Now, as far as Colombia was concerned, there was long-term consequences. Alfonso Senior, so he was one of the architects of the original bid. He expressed deep disappointment and he resigned from his position. Colombia wouldn't host a major international tournament until the 2001 Copa America, which itself faced withdrawals by teams such as Canada and Argentina due to logistical and security concerns. And in later years, Colombia did make further efforts to host major tournaments. It did put in a bid for the 2014 World Cup, and I bet it's really glad that Brazil got it, although of course Colombia actually withdrew its offer before it progressed. It has held the 2011 FIFA Under-20 World Cup and the 2024 FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup as well. So it also bid for the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup, but it lost to Australia, wasn't it? Australia, New Zealand. And in 2021 it was again stripped. This time, so it was stripped of rights. It was due to hold the 2021 Copa America, but there was civil unrest, and so it didn't actually do it. Anyway, good. So thanks so much for listening. I hope you found that interesting. Obviously, football isn't a major thing on this channel, but as the World Cup's on at the moment, and there's a lot of people asking about the benefits of holding a World Cup. And to be quite honest, I can't really see them. Now, the point of it gives a lot of prestige. It might be that your country gets a lot of publicity. Why the United States would need publicity is sort of beyond me. I mean, if you have a country like, I don't know, Tajikistan or something, then I could understand why you might be in the bidding. But the problem is, it's FIFA's demands, which are getting more and more and more ridiculous as to infrastructure, as to stadiums, and it's the money that they control. They get all the money from the sponsorship. They get all the money from the gate, from the attendance, the ticket sales. It's FIFA's competition. They get all the cash, and it's the host countries that end up forking out the bill, and there's a queue of them. Now, if this were to change, then it might be better, it might be different. Now, people say it's all about the fans, but it isn't. That's a load of nonsense. A bit like Facebook. It's not about the users. It's about the people, the advertisers. The users are the target. They're the product, and in this case, the product is the fans. It's not any other way. Now, if anybody out there says, no, that's not true, it's about football, they want to go and see their national team or something like that. Well, if you want to see the national team, you've got to pay huge sums of cash to do it. Now, on the other hand, if you want to watch a game of football, you come and watch me and my mates and their kids play football in the park. And this actually has a lot of benefits over the World Cup, because you come and watch me and my mates play in the game, and you know it's going to be a rubbish game, and you get what you expect, a rubbish game. But if you go to the World Cup, you've got expectations. It invariably ends up being a rubbish game, so you're disappointed. So the answer is, come and see me and my mates play on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon and in the park. And you also might get a game. And to be quite honest, if you go to watch Brazil play Germany, I think the chance of you getting a game is quite limited, unless you know better. Thanks for watching.